but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking.
So the Epstein cover-up continues. We got Pam Bondi coming up, or coming before Congress, answering questions. We have a few videos from that I will show you guys, and just up there covering for pedophiles. That is the simple answer there. A lot of good moments from Massie, Jasmine Crockett, and a couple more congressmen asking her questions. And, this comes, I believe this was on Friday, and, just yesterday, I'm recording this on Monday, she was saying that, the DOJ, we're done releasing documents. Like, what do you mean you're done releasing documents? I think they've released like 3.5 million, and, there's a total of 6 million that we know of. That are out there. It could be more, it could be less, but that there's definitely more content to get out there. And Pam Bondi's just like, nah, we're done, and we're not, getting any more information out. That's just directly in violation of the law. Let's get that out of there. Let's talk about that. But just, and it's just unethical as fuck. Like, why are you not releasing this information on these pedophiles? Pam Bondi, like I said in my previous videos, Pam Bondi sees who it is. She sees all this content unredacted, all these files unredacted, anything big. I'm sure she's not like scrolling through like the documents herself, but everybody who works for the DOJ on the taxpayer's dime, by the way, and at this point, this is like 99.9999999% supported that obviously everybody released the Epstein files. The 0.00001 are the people that are in it, or this huge billionaire class, and Pam Bondi, her dumbass, who's not even a billionaire. She's not. I don't know how much money she has, but she's just running cover for her political party. So she's being used like a pawn. She does whatever Daddy Donald Trump says anyway. So what do you expect? But yeah, she's doing that, and it's just utterly disgusting what's happening. But I do have a few videos that are interesting that I think everybody should at least see. These or we're gonna play this one video. Everybody should at least see this. This is kind of like the main crux of what we're all talking about here and what we're all thinking here. So just watch this video with me real quickly.
Trafficking, co-conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need, that you're holding on to and over redacting, because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator?
Okay, that kind of ends, and it doesn't even give out her response there, but essentially what happened there was this, or he had three different things. The first picture that he showed that the video didn't cover was it was a basically a list of names of survivors that Pam Bondi and the DOJ was not supposed to release because they're victims. And obviously, in the Epstein Transparency Act, one thing was you're not supposed to release victims' names, right? And I think that's over. That's very well known why, right? Like everybody knows why we don't want the victims' names to be out there, and that's totally reasonable. Okay, that's totally ignored, and that's a huge failure with what Massie was saying, and he's totally correct on that. It has like 20 names or so from a lawyer to the DOJ and whoever redacts names to redact this list. Okay, they don't do that. They release the whole thing anyways, and it implicates some of the victims that didn't want to be known, and that's obviously a huge fuck up. But you can see if it's like a mistake, right? Like, oh, they didn't touch the file, they didn't see that file. It was an honest mistake. Even though you guys aren't supposed to really make mistakes, it's not that hard. You pay these people. I mean, it's been reported that they're paying like an extra like $1 million of taxpayer funds just to redact names. So like, you really shouldn't even be making these mistakes. That in of itself is a huge mistake, that you're making mistakes, first of all. But second of all, we know you even touched the document because you redacted one name. Sorry about that. So you did that. You redacted two names. You redacted one name on the survivors list, and then you redacted the lawyer's name. Then you released the entirety of the victims besides the one name, which is absolutely ridiculous. Second one, which they were talking about in that video, was the. Let me pull it back up really quickly. Les Wexner, the guy that owns Abercrombie and Fitch, I think that's the name of it, and Victoria's Secret. Obviously implicated hugely in the Epstein files. That both of them said there, his name appears a ton of times, and so we all know that he was implicated in some way, and there's even more conspiracies, or not even really conspiracies, have some merit to it, that he was in business with Jeffrey Epstein, paying him for tax advice and more things. But Pam Bondi wants to say that his name was listed in the Epstein files 100 times, sure, but you redacted his name from a co-conspirator list of trafficking children. Like that is a huge difference. There's a big difference from being in the Epstein files and then being a co-conspirator. Wow, whoa! Why did I just say that? Co-conspirator on the Epstein files and saying that you traffic children. That is a huge difference. If that would be Donald Trump, they would be going crazy. That obviously that is a huge difference between just being listed in the Epstein files for whatever event that you're at. Maybe you pull it up to like one of Jeffrey Epstein's parties or whatever, to being a co-conspirator to a child sex trafficking ring. That's insanely different. I don't need to explain that. And then the third one was and by the way, on the second one, I believe Thomas Massie can see all the names. There was four. I believe it was four co-conspirators on that thing. I will actually pull it up really quickly because I'm curious. But as you can see, he unredacted Les Wexler's name. He showed this picture of this woman too. If you can see my cursor, I don't know who these people are. But why doesn't he do the other two? Like, because he confirmed that he can see the whole thing. Why doesn't he just say who it is? I don't know. I'm not saying he's covering up anybody, but why did he do that? I'd like an answer to that question. Obviously, I can't ask him, but I'd like an answer to that question. And then the third one is the FD 302. I don't exactly know what that is. He's saying that we need to see that, and they're hiding this even from the congressmen and women. Some things they can see that we can't see on some portal for the Epstein files. That's exactly why he saw Les Wexler's name, and then he called Pam Bondi or whoever in the DOJ to say, why are you redacting this? And that's why he said, I caught you red-handed, because he went in there and he saw behind the redactions that we can't see. Maybe the other, just going back on the second one, maybe the other two names that was the co-conspirator for the child sex trafficking ring, uh, maybe he couldn't see that as well. Maybe it's behind the redaction that he can't see. I don't know, but ultimately on the third one, he can't see. Uh, he can't even see behind the redactions on that one. So what are they hiding there? But it obviously can't be all just like victims or that's really the only leeway they have to do redactions, is what it's supposed to be. But obviously they're redacting off just whatever the hell they feel like, and now they're saying that they're just done, which is obviously bullshit. So just a lot of covering up that they're doing for the Epstein files. Even another thing that they have to do that doesn't even have anything to do with releasing more files is they have to declare that they're investigating people like Wexner, people in the Epstein files. They actually did a whole list. It was like a 300 name list of people, but like it kind of felt like they were throwing people off because it had people like Alex Jones on there. Even though I'm not an Alex Jones fan, I don't think he was like in bed with Epstein in terms of like him also sex trafficking children. I've seen no evidence for that. And then there was like a bunch of other random names in there as well. But yeah, you just got to keep the aggression and keep telling the DOJ to release these files, release these files, release these files. That's the only reason we've even come this far. I mean, Donald Trump just before this, in December, November area was just adamant on saying, do not release these files. Republicans do not vote for this. This is a Democrat hoax. There's nothing in these files. Democrat hoax, Democrat hoax, Democrat hoax. And obviously we've gotten some information out of it. We've gotten no prosecutions or anything like that, but we've definitely got more information that needs to be released. And we've gotten information that has been helpful in just scoping out kind of the whole narrative here. So you just have to keep covering news and people speaking out and having people like Massie and Rokana obviously just go after Pam Bondi and try to make her release more files. That's what I'm doing here. That's why I keep making videos as much as I can to whether it be 1,000 views or 10,000 views or 500 views, 100 views. It's just more content on the story, and it just pushes the narrative that we need to release these Epstein files, and that there's more pedophiles out there that aren't being prosecuted. And even people like Les Wexner, I know he's getting a lot of backlash. Of course, sometimes it doesn't even feel like anything's happening, but there's a lot of stories out there of him, and I'm sure they're under some pressure, but he needs to be prosecuted. I don't care how old he is or whatever the fuck he is. He's obviously some way somehow implicated in the Epstein files. I mean, by God, he was fucking a co-conspirator at some point. So yeah, I mean, at some point the cookies got to crumble. The prosecutions are going to have to come out, and if Pam Bondi has to be one of the prosecutions and she doesn't want to prosecute anybody, we're gonna have to wait until 2028, and then we'll have to prosecute her and then anybody else, any other pedophiles that are on that or in those redactions that they don't want to release for whatever reason. Very sketchy. Just like Donald Trump said, a lot of his friends are on there, which he told Marjorie Taylor Greene would get hurt. So obviously they're trying to protect them at all costs. So yeah, we'll see, guys. But apparently none of this matters if none of this matters as long as the Dow's over 50,000. Am I right?